But it's too hot outside, and I don't know if I can take it. The weeds are all over, and they're eating everything I've got. I don't know if I can take any more summer, any more summer. The weeds are up to my eyes. The wasps are all... Oh man, I gotta tell you guys today. Alright, I finally killed some wasps. People are like, don't kill anything in nature, because nature is our friend. Everything in nature has a balance. And if we don't respect that balance, I'll tell you what, I just about got balanced in the face by some wasps today, and I said, that's enough. That's enough. So, yeah, I was I went to go hook up the bush hog early in the morning, like 5:45 or so in the morning. It's before 6 o'clock. The sun's coming up. Like, the dew is on the grass. It's beautiful outside, and I get close to the bush hog, and a wasp. Like, I back the tractor up to it, and this wasp comes. What's that? So I look down a little closer. A little piece on the top where you put the top thing of the 3-point hitch. There's a wasp nest right in it. The next thing I was going to do is go hook that thing up. I tell you what, I don't know about you guys, but as I have gotten older, my tolerance for wasp stings has gone way down. I got stung in the face the other day. A wasp came right up and stung me right between the nostrils. I don't know why it would do that, but boom! And my nose was running, and my face was swollen, and my upper lip was like this. I was like an Instagram model. It was terrible, but I couldn't even touch it. So yeah, I killed them. I killed them all, and not just the men, but the women and the children. Well, I guess all the wasps are women in there, but they're dead. They're dead. So I had to I literally had to stop what I was doing. I said some words. I said a few words when I got stung right here. I had to go to confession. Anyhow, so guys, how you all doing? Hey Shani, hey Atlanta Gardner, hey Libby, hey Christy, hey Derek, hey Matt, Bobbert and Laura and Terry. Terry, you love the hat. Yeah, I've been working outside all day. I said, forget it. Look at my hair. It's been under this hat all day. It's been a day. Harvested the final end of the potatoes today. Harvested the rest of the corn. Harvested the last of the watermelons, and bush hogged that entire area under. Just cut it all down, shredded it all on top. You know, it's like sustainable, right? You just shred all the old crops, let them lay on the surface, and feed the soil back. We're short on organic matter here, so running over it with a bush hog shreds it and leaves it in place, which is cool. Left shreds of corn all over the place. But anyhow, it's nice to see y'all. Hey, Alex. Hey, Sam. Wick 589. I hate the feeling, man. I get stung by a wasp now. It hurts for days. So, it has awoken me from my slumber. Yeah, the wasp thought I was a big caterpillar dinner. It's funny. So I was looking at this big green mess, and that's what I thought, hey, let's talk about making a big green mess. Sometimes it's kind of a nice reset to just throw a bunch of stuff together and let God sort it out. Or let nature sort it out. Or sort it out later with a weed whacker. Which I suppose, if you believe in divine providence, there is a certain amount that pretty much God still sorted it all out. But I'm not a Calvinist anymore, so We can't go too far here. God made me weed whack today. I don't know. I'm not sure. Don't know. I can't. It hurts my brain. But sometimes to kind of break through where you just want control and you want everything perfect, it makes sense to just make a mess. Like I've told people with planting food forests, go plant one tree and then just start piecing out rough triangle shapes from that tree to put other trees in the ground. You put one here and one here and one here, and then you put one over here and you put one over here and you put one over here and you put one over here, and just start letting it grow out from there. And as I was thinking, there's a lot of serendipity, I guess, that happens in my gardens. I didn't really plant very many pumpkins this year. I planted one variety out in the field that I was hoping to save seed from, and then I found out that it had crossed with Seminole pumpkin. It was a warty pumpkin from the tropics, and it crossed. It was black, almost totally black, the blackest pumpkin that I have ever grown or seen, except maybe online. But it was a warty black pumpkin I got from the tropics that I'd never seen anything like before. And it grew, and my Seminole pumpkins grew too, but I thought they were different species. They ended up crossing, and now I have the weirdest, warty, flesh-colored pumpkins, ranging from kind of a darker tan to almost a pale white with bruising marks on them of green and blue. They are the weirdest looking pumpkins I've ever seen. But I didn't deliberately plant pumpkins except for those. But guess what? My gardens are covered in pumpkins. And they grew out of my compost pile, and they grew out of where I pushed all the brush together when I was cleaning up in the winter. Apparently, just pumpkins have naturalized onto my property and become a weed. So I've got pumpkins, and that is serendipity. And they are a big mess right now. So I was doing a little string trimming today, and I was trying to determine what would be the best way for me to clear around the grocery row gardens, because a lot of grass and weeds have gotten up near the entrances, and some of the pathways are starting to get weedy because we didn't get as much mulch on in the spring as we wanted to. But the pumpkins have taken over and started to crawl through there, so you could barely get through. And then as I was clearing, I came across a gigantic pumpkin that's shaped like a big pear, and it's covered in warts. It's a green pumpkin covered in warts that's probably a cross of a Seminole with some of the weird tropical ones. Bizarre. It's a serendipity pumpkin. It's probably 25 pounds of pumpkin that I didn't plant. But what has happened over the years, as I have gardened, is that I've started to be able to recognize patterns and get consistent yields now, sometimes not even when I'm deliberately planning to get yields. So when I first started gardening, it seemed like everything was uphill. Everything was uphill. I had terrible soil. I was growing in South Florida. I had sad-looking, malformed cucumbers. I had lettuce that was covered with aphids, and it would bolt very quickly. I just didn't do very well at gardening. But as I practiced and I put in the hours and I learned from other gardeners, bit by bit I started to find the stuff that worked. And then I started figuring out how to build the soil, how to create soil. And then the more I poured into it and the more I cultivated plants, the more the garden started to take on a life of its own. Now, I do tend a little bit towards anarchistic gardening style, as probably a lot of you know. This book, Create Your Own Florida Food Forest, I advocate for a style of gardening that is more meandering, natural, but not always. right? Sometimes I want my neat rows and I want high yields. Like I planted my corn in neat rows at 3 foot apart, and I gave a space for just corn because corn is not going to do well in that meandering system that I have. I've put corn into food forests before, but only when they're young, and I planted them in small blocks. Yeah, the book is Create Your Own Florida Food Forest. It has over 150 illustrations with a huge amount of data and information on various crops. This is the book for Florida food forests. But I know a lot of you aren't from Florida, so I don't always do live streams on it, but my background is in Florida gardening. In learning how to garden and how to care for the soil, and in planting different crops over the years, it started to just... the crops and the ground and the plants have seemingly started to respond to my care and my time and my prayers and, I mean, good thoughts, man, good energy, man. You know, I don't know what it is, but the ground has started to just bring me things. So I get presented with tomatoes that have planted themselves, and with pumpkins that have planted themselves, and with interesting wildflowers that show up and grow. And I've seen Apios americana, the American groundnut. I planted a few of them, and now they're just all over the place. They've just sort of naturalized in an area. And it's kind of gratifying, but I think when you first start and you're so nervous, it's I don't know if your plants can tell, because other times I mean I've met people that are just gung-ho on gardening right from the first bit, and they'll say it's beginner's luck, right? It's beginner's luck. This lady, you know, I met this lady. She's like, oh, we grew this, and we grew this, and we grew this. And she shows me her garden. Like, your gardens look better than mine. This is your first year gardening? She's so excited. And she's out there all the time, and all the plants are just pouring fruit out for her. Like, we love you. Just here, you have some fruit. And I'm like, look at him going, wow, you're doing really great. So you could say it's beginner's luck, right? It just happened to be a good year, and she happened to somehow pick the right thing. Or there's probably something of her positivity and her enthusiasm and her joy sort of rubbed off on the plants somehow. I mean, I don't know. But beyond that, there's another thing that is happening often when somebody jumps into it with a lot of enthusiasm and they keep going. And that is, they keep going. They keep doing the work. They keep going out there. They're pulling the weeds. They're watching out for their plants. They're walking past their plants every day. They're picking them when they're ready. They're excited about every new plant. They're not starting a garden at the beginning of the season and then half ignoring it, and then the weeds take it over, and then it's all destroyed, and then they just give up. They're kind of rolling with it. And the world is a very negative, dark place. Do you know when I had the best book sales I'd ever had? 2020. 2020, I had the best book sales. Why? Because I was giving answers to people that needed them at that time. That people were suddenly, gardening was important. This book right here. Yeah, exactly, Atlanta Gardener. Yep. Doom year, Sam. This book right here, Grow or Die. You can go read the reviews for this book on Amazon. This book was a bestseller in spring of 2020. This book almost made me rich. But you know what happened? The printer stopped printing for a time. The supply lines got busted. Amazon sold this book like crazy, and then it disappeared. It disappeared. it disappeared for like 2 months or 3 months. And at that point, the algorithm went, "Ew." Something else, huh? Grow or Die. The Good Guide to Survival Gardening. Before, it had sold pretty well. It had sold pretty well. It was a consistent, this book gets you food out of the ground. It was a consistent book. But then 2020 made people realize that they needed it. They didn't know that they needed it yet. And people are also forgetting that they need to know how to grow food. And they don't have the stick-to-itiveness because there's not a fire lit under them, right? I think that everybody needs to know how to grow food. And it took me years to figure out how to grow food well and to start to see the abundance that we see now. I mean, over 4,000 pounds of food from our gardens and our homestead this last year. It was over, I think it was about 3,500 from the garden, and then we had pigs, and we had milk, and we had eggs from our yard. But I didn't start that way. I remember 10 years before or more thinking that 300 or 400 pounds of food was a good year. But now I can easily break a couple thousand pounds of food in a so-so year just from the systems that we already have rolling. And when you look around and you go, okay, let's see, stock market is at all-time highs. We don't really have, it looked like we might have gotten a war in the Middle East, and it just sort of has simmered, but it didn't really keep going. It looks like maybe we're kind of okay for now. Maybe it's not that bad. But if you look at all the things underneath the surface, nothing has really been fixed. Nothing has really been fixed. And people wait until that last minute when everything is completely like, okay, it's like they say, people sell their stocks when they're at the bottom, right? Cash me out right now. Everybody's losing money. Everybody's losing money. But the rich people say when everybody's losing money and it's cratered, that's the time you buy. But the normal psychology is when things are really good, they buy. When things get bad, they sell. But that's how you get destroyed. So you don't learn how to garden and actually push it in the good times because, well, I got other stuff to do. I'm gonna spend my money on an ATV. I'm gonna go fishing. You know, I'm gonna go out to eat. I'm not gonna bother with it. I'm gonna grow houseplants, right? There's nothing wrong with all of those things, but the skill set is really something that you should master for if you need it and when you need it. And so because I had spent multiple years, when 2020 came around, we were actually living on the mountainside in the Caribbean, and we were fortunate enough to have a half an acre of land, and we gardened about a fifth of it, and we planted so much food, just in case, because at the beginning we didn't know what was going to happen. We stockpiled a bunch of stuff before they did all the lockdowns and everything. I basically was like, we're going to get a ton of pasta, we're going to get a ton of rice, because I saw this thing is coming. You know, it's January, February. I was reading Zero Hedge. And Zero Hedge is talking about this mysterious virus coming out of China. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, you know what? Let's just buy extra just in case, and we'll just expand our gardens just in case. When it got to March and everybody panicked, suddenly everything was locked down, and it was really hard to stock up. But we had stocked up ahead of time. Now, if I'd known you could get rich on toilet paper, you know, I might have done that. But I didn't. Didn't get rich on toilet paper. Could have sold toilet paper futures. I don't know. But anyhow, we stocked up and we planted like crazy. But because I already had the ability to grow and the knowledge to grow, I just implemented what I already had in that book. And then, right, so I had my sweet potatoes in rows. I had my cassava in rows. If I was further north, I would have had my potatoes going. I would have my grain corn going. I also did grain corn, but I did the tropical grain corn. I had all kinds of stuff, just all like lined up, dry beans and all kinds of stuff. Anyhow, all that was like in place, in place, in place, in place, row after row, bed after bed. And by the time everybody's just panicking and they're only letting 6 people into the grocery store at a time, we were already starting to get some harvests. So the time to actually buy Grow or Die was not in April, May, June of 2020. The time was actually when it came out, which was 2016. Where everything was kind of okay, you know? I mean, 2016, fine, whatever. You know, there's always weird stuff going on politically and all that kind of thing. Everybody's got something that they're going to panic about. And, but I had been practicing my survival gardening for some years just in case. Because I have just enough paranoia. I saw what they did in 2008. I saw how the can got kicked down the road. I knew that you could have a crash again, and you will have a crash again. I knew that you could lock everything down. I knew that gas could just disappear at the pumps. I knew that, it doesn't take much to just set this whole thing off. So if in the time where you're kind of feeling okay, you still are learning things that might serve you well in other times. Like, for example, is it a good idea to take a CPR class? Yeah, absolutely. Take a CPR class. Why do you keep a spare tire in your car? Because tires occasionally blow out. Right? So, you get the skills when you have the opportunity, because you want to be that person that can take care of yourself, but you can also take care of the people that you love, and you can also take care of your family, your friends, everybody, and you can start the community garden. You can be the guy or the girl that just knows gardening, and if everything really collapses, some cartel boss who takes over, a warlord takes over your area, you're useful. You can grow his plantation of poppies or whatever. You're always going to have work if you know how to grow food or other things. I mean, I'm joking. I'm joking, but the principle is there. If you are the person that grows food, you're useful. And of course, people will say, "Well, if you're the person that's growing food, people are just going to rob you." Yeah, well, make sure you have lots of friends first, because people will want to protect their farmers. People like farmers. So, yeah. Yeah, William says, I still think we would greatly benefit from a national cultural push towards repopularizing victory gardens. The war looks different, but still is. Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of our gardens are now in the hands of massive agriculture, massive agro-business, right? It used to be that we had patchworks of small farms all over the place. Small farms, small dairies, all that, everywhere. You could buy your eggs and your milk and your groceries and your pork. You could buy a lot of it locally. Some of the stuff that you wouldn't buy locally would be maybe bananas, coffee. Sometimes you would have your flour already ground, etc. But what that has turned into is that even the very basics of life, your milk and your eggs and your flour, are coming from thousands of miles away in big factory farms. They're not local. Your local farms may not even sell to you. Our local farms grow GenMod corn, GenMod soy, GenMod cotton, and probably GenMod peanuts. I don't know what they do with peanuts, but there's these crops that are on a rotation here, and most of that is not sold locally. There are some people that'll sell corn for deer corn, but they're not, processing grits here that I know of. The cotton is being baled up and sold somewhere else. So it's very important to know how to grow first, and to prepare for bad times first. So that's why I collect books. That's why I pay for education. I have no problem paying somebody to teach me how to do something. When I wanted to learn how to start my own plant nursery, for example, I took a job at a plant nursery for free. I volunteered to go over a day every week and just volunteer, and to do plant shows on weekends. And I did that for some months and saw how the inner workings of a nursery happened, and what it's like paying for it, right? Because I could have been paid, I don't know, what, $12 an hour or something to just do labor. I knew my plants, but I was unskilled labor as nurseries go. But I guess, I mean, I knew grafting, I could do propagation, all that kind of thing. But even if you're skilled labor and you're working by the hour at a nursery, you generally don't get that much money. But what I got out of it was an education. So it was basically, I was paying them with my time, probably, you know, if I'm writing, I can make a good income, a decent income. It's not great, but it's a decent income. But if I was just being a laborer, you know, I wouldn't make a decent income. But if you figure, okay, maybe David the Good is worth $25 per hour. Let's be generous. David the Good is worth $25 an hour. If I work for myself, maybe I could make $25 an hour. So $25 an hour, I go to their place and I volunteer as a manual laborer for 8-hour days. Oh, wow, that's a waste of $200 a day. No, it's not. That's cheap education because they had knowledge that I didn't have. So I volunteered time. So you just boom, you just go in there, right? Just go in there. And I'm getting a college degree in how to run a plant nursery. I saw how they dealt with customers, how they propagated, how they set up shows, how they irrigated. I saw how the mist systems worked, and I just volunteered, and I asked questions, and I volunteered, and I tried not to be a pest. And at the same time, I buy a lot of books. I'm always buying books. But when you start to enjoy what you're doing, and you start to understand what you're doing, and throw your enthusiasm into it, and you throw your time into it, and it starts to just produce for you, you get to the point where you can make a big green mess, and it'll be productive, and you can enjoy yourself because you have the skills. I could throw a bunch of seeds at the ground and just see what happens. But I can also make a very productive row garden with crops that I know thrive in my area and feed my family in an emergency. And I can choose how I'm going to do this. I can choose what I want to do because I have the skills in my head already to be able to feed myself and to be able to provide for others. So the grow or die side of things, there's a link to this book, by the way, top of the chat. If you don't have it, people have said some very nice things about this book in the chat. I appreciate that. Get this book if you don't have this book. Go get Grow or Die. It's cheap insurance, very cheap insurance. But the knowledge that's in it, the crop lists, as you get in the back, there's this whole section, a big old giant crop list, and it runs through the crops and their uses. And I also have a diagram for how you can make a potato gun to defend yourself if you have to. How many survival books have a potato gun diagram in them? The entire book is worth it just for this, the Emergency Quick Start Guide. It basically is just it's like, in case of emergency, there are flotation devices underneath, your cushion is a flotation device. Anyhow, yeah, get the book, Grow or Die. Go click the link right now, top of the chat. Buy this book right now, cheap insurance. I have no problem selling you a, $13 book that I wrote to make sure that people have the knowledge they need in an emergency. So, yes, go buy it. It's totally worth it. And we put it into practice in 2020, which was cool because we had already basically been practicing our survival gardening skills by trying to do things like, how long can we eat from just the garden? Which crops produce us the most calories? How can we take a chunk out of the grocery budget? Because I spent a good bit of my life on the poor end of the spectrum. Not destitute. This is America. It's hard to be totally destitute here. It does happen, but towards the like praying that we can make the electric bill end of the spectrum, and emergency having to rent a trailer for 6 months to recover financially, that kind of thing, and the knowledge that we learned from trying to actually make our garden into a productive thing that kept us fed went into the Grow or Die book. But then when 2020 came, we had already been practicing it, but we didn't have a really good emergency. And 2020 was like, yeah, this is a good emergency to practice this. We can't even hardly go shopping. This is great. So we just put it into practice. It wasn't great. I'm exaggerating, but it was like, let's hit the dirt, man. We're gonna put this into practice, and we tore it all up and we planted, and we did we produced so much food. We produced so much food, and then we ended up moving back to the States at the end of that year, and we did it again with a fall garden and put a bunch of food out there because we didn't know what was going to happen next. And of course, there's all this stuff about, the election, what's going to happen with the election, and this and that and the other thing, and oh man, it's like everything is up in the air. Do you remember that sense of creeping terror? It was like everything was just off and bizarre. People that you thought were totally cool ended up the weirdest people in the world. Some people just died. They couldn't even they died from stress. They didn't even die from from the Rona. They didn't die from the bat soup. They actually just died because they were stressed out. That creeping terror where everybody's just like, what has gone wrong with the world? But yeah, so we gardened like it was the end of the world just in case. Somebody asked me the other day, don't you feel dumb? Like the crisis that you thought was going to happen never happened? I was like, no, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that it didn't end up with, a quarter of the world's population dead. When you first started seeing it, and they're like, 10% of people died. 10% of people, the fertility rate is 10% in Italy right now. I remember one of those early reports. 10%? Like 1 out of 10 people that I know is going to die? There have been. A lot of our, if you're European, your ancestors went through the Black Death, where a quarter of the population died. I cannot even imagine having 1/4 of the population die. It does happen. This was like one of those runs where it's like, is it going to be like that? Do I have the skills to get through this? Woo, man. We lost some people. Mia said we lost a few family in Italy. Very sad. Yeah, when it hit Italy, it hit hard. And one of my best friends lost his mom. He almost died himself. One of my cousins lost a husband. Young guy. But knowing that we could at least produce foods, like you can't deal with everything, but the practice that we had put in and the research that we had put in and the knowledge, it made food production easy comparatively. We didn't have the learning curve on the front end. So right now, with my big green mess, I'm enjoying gardening. I do produce staple crops for us to eat regularly. We pulled in about 150 pounds of potatoes today. Those potatoes will last us probably through the fall, I would guess. We eat a lot. We'll probably give some away too. We might get through winter. I don't know. We really eat a lot of what we produce. But I also have the big green mess in the grocery row gardens right now, where I'm just letting the pumpkins run, and I'm letting the ground nuts run, and I'm letting things happen. And I could have really optimized production and got in there and mulched more heavily and produced a lot more. I could have gotten my sweet potatoes in the ground early, but I'm not panicking right now. I know that we can ramp up production anytime we want to. So the enjoyment of making the big green mess is what we do when we're not panicky. I know, notice one of you said, you're going to wait 7 years for your orchard. Yeah. So if you have a food forest and you've made a big, beautiful, messy food forest, that's very useful for your medicine, for your fruits, for some nuts, for peace of mind, for just the joy of walking the paths between the trees and harvesting the mulberries and everything. But is it the most productive of systems? I wouldn't say so. Perhaps in certain climates. But as I've made the case before, if you plant a pumpkin vine, you can get 50 pounds of pumpkins that you can eat with high quality seeds that you can roast and eat. You can get 50 pounds of pumpkins at least in 120 days. If you planted a chestnut tree, it would take you about 3 years to get your first couple of chestnuts, and it would take you about 10 years to maybe get 20 pounds of chestnuts. You can get chestnuts year after year, but if you look at it like that, it's like it's no work. It's beautiful in my food forest, and if I planted 30 chestnut trees, I'd probably would just let them, I'd just get tons and tons of chestnuts. I'd be making chestnut flour. I don't know, you probably get tired of chestnuts. But yeah, it's great, but it's not grow or die territory, right? It's a food forest system, a perennial system, an orchard system. It's wonderful. I love it. But if I want fast production, I'm going to get some staple crops in the ground. I'm going to grow some grain corn. I'm going to grow some pumpkins. I'm going to grow some beans. I'm going to grow some sweet potatoes. I'm going to roll. I'm going to roll with all of those. And I'm going to get a literal ton of food out of my yard. My food forest right now probably makes a few 100 pounds of food. My regular gardens that take up about the same space make a couple 1,000 pounds of food. So that's why I say you need to have these skills and know how to really pull food out of the ground first and make a big green mess for fun. Make a big green mess for fun. Worry is definitely bad for you. Yeah. Thank you, Matt. Matt says he bought Minimalist Gardening. I appreciate it. Minimalist Gardening gives you a philosophy of gardening, and it kind of cuts through a lot of the junk. Grow or Die is like, the house is on fire, here's your fire extinguisher. This is, and if you look at the reviews on this book, this is an easy to read, short book that every single person should have in his or her library. You just should have a copy of it. It's simple. I kind of approach it in a rather a fun way, but it's also dead serious information. Dead serious information, and it is tested information. So, thank you, Matt. Matt says just bought the book. Okay, so bought the book and you bought Minimalist Gardening. Thank you very much. So, yeah, and this is not just a Florida book. So, it's a book for everybody. This is what you're going to do to feed yourself if things collapse. So, Donald says, thank you for turning me on to yams. Oh, yeah, I love those staple crops. Man, I'm so glad you're growing them. I found a document on growing yams in the Gulf Coast. Yams, a promising crop for the Gulf Coast, published by the U.S. government. And now they're telling you that yams are an invasive and you shouldn't grow them. At least some of them. But they were talking about what a great potential crop it was for the Gulf Coast area, deep south. And now it's like there's nothing on them. What happened? Why do we not have yams everywhere? Why is everything these big commodity crops? I mean, people are growing Cheetos and ethanol. They should be growing yams. So. Oh, Carolyn, that's very kind of you. Thank you. Carolyn says, I just ordered the book for my nephew and his wife. Yeah, I actually, it's funny, I gave away the ebook version of Grow or Die during the pandemic. I don't know if you guys remember, but for a period of time, I was able to set it as free on Kindle. I think I was on Kindle Unlimited. I gave it away free as a download, and I think I posted it on my website too. Like, look, hey, we're in a crisis right here. If you don't have this book, just get it. I'm not going to mail paperback copies to every single person, but hey, just go download it and read it. And you know what? People still buy the book because I think people appreciate the fact that I've already given away so much free information. And also, having the physical paperback copy of books, I will reiterate this again and again, have physical books, have real books. Have real books that are not editable remotely, that cannot just disappear with a hard drive, or disappear when your computer crashes, or disappear when you lose your tablet, or whatever, you know. So, yeah, physical copies of books. I keep a library of physical copies of books, of gardening books that stretch back into the 1800s. I try to get books, too, that are pre-industrialization, just in case. So, and I love the language of them, too, so. William says I'm a good man. Well, you know, I am a fallen man. I call myself David the Good, which is not really theologically correct, but it's easy to remember. I had a Calvinist tell me I should call myself David the Depraved because all men are depraved, but it's pretty funny. It's like, yeah, I don't think people would really be, you know, like, I don't want the book by David the Depraved. It sounds horrible. But, yeah, you know, we've all got to answer to God, too. So I felt like, hey, it's a crisis. You know what? Help yourself. And hopefully you don't panic. So, of course, if panicking sells my books, you know, go ahead and panic and buy the book. But I'm just kidding. I kind of need... I have a lot of kids to feed, guys. Please buy my books. David the Recently Good. Sam the Smith, but my last name is really Smith, too. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, thank you, Carolyn. Carolyn, you are a good and faithful woman. I appreciate you. I'm depraved. David the Depraved. You buy that shirt. Yeah. Anyhow, guys, I was just looking at my big green mess out in the garden and said I'm going to do one called Make a Big Green Mess. And I was thinking, too, about survival gardening, and I was looking, it's like, the S&P 500 hits another all-time high. The S&P 500 hits another all-time high. I'm like, I don't think people are realizing, like, the rug could get pulled on this thing. As I was bringing in my pumpkins and my corn and my watermelons and I have boxes of potatoes. I store them in boxes. I use old cardboard boxes. I let the potatoes dry out a little bit. I store them in boxes, and I just have boxes of potatoes on my closed-in porch area in storage. Boxes of food. And like the feeling of knowing that I have lots of food is a very good feeling. And even if everything seems like it's up right now and it's all right, and we didn't get a war between Iran and Israel at the moment, I just feel like I like to have that big survival pantry in the ground where I know that I can go dig roots up if I want them. I know that I've got tons of pumpkins. If we need to eat them, I can roast pumpkin seeds. I can roast the pumpkins. We can eat the pumpkins. We grow pumpkins that are good to eat. I know I've got cows out in the field. I know the cows are making manure that I can use to feed the garden. I know that I got my composting going. I know how to feed the crops and how to grow the crops. I know that if we had to, we could put in another, just big old row garden, and we know how to grow. I would rather have too much food and have to give it away or feed it to the animals or compost it than not have enough food and then, oh shoot, yeah, we just got in a war and I can't go to the grocery store. So yeah, grow or die. Grow or die. I practice what I preach on this one. I like to always have not just a storage of food where you've got sacks of things in your house that are being eaten by weevils, but stuff that you could go dig out of the ground and eat. Plants that are going to produce for years. So I've got my food forest as my long term. There's always some food coming in there. We'll have fresh peaches and persimmons and chestnuts and things like that. But at the same time, I've got my row gardens. I've got my yams, my sweet potatoes, my corn, all of my staple crops. And then I've got all of our nutrition crops. I've got our berries. We've got our berries. We've got our leafy greens. All of that stuff is regularly coming in. And if there is a crisis, hey, we've been through it before. We did a good test run there, and we had supply line issues, and we were literally living overseas as expats on the side of a mountain on lockdown for months, and grow or die works. It's time tested, tried and true, and I just try to make it let's just get this stuff together. Let's get this stuff together in a format where it's basically your fire extinguisher in case of everything burning down around you. So if you don't have Grow or Die, I highly recommend it. Super cheap insurance. There is a link to it at the top of this chat. Grow or Die, the good guide to survival gardening. I could write the 2020 bestseller. It's pretty funny. The 2020 bestseller, Grow or Die. Go look at the reviews. You'll see that it's worth buying. Go click the link at the top and get a copy if you don't have it. And you also support this channel. So, thank you. South Florida Sunshine, for a bag of yam chips. Thank you. Grow or Die, you feel the power of your ancestors. I like that. That's so funny. The power of your ancestors. I love those yam chips. I should try making yam chips. That's right. Bobber sends a super chat and says, just plant your yard. It's not as hard as you'd think. Why would we spend... I was looking at zero-turn mowers again. I'm not buying one. I have a beater zero-turn mower that I got used, and it's got some issues right now, so I'm just fixing it again. Gotta fix it again. Gotta keep that thing limping along till the very last bit, because if you look at those zero-turn mowers, they start at something like $2,500, and if you get a pretty decent one, like, you're looking at like $5,000 for a zero-turn mower. It's great to have a zero-turn mower if you've got more than, a half an acre of yard or something. But, or if you're gonna make money off of it by mowing your neighbor's yard, mowing all your neighbor's yards, that's great. Zero-turn's the way to go. But yeah, you're looking at how much people spend on their grass, but they won't spend the time or anything to learn how to garden, to learn how to make it productive. So we've talked before about liabilities versus assets. Your lawn is a liability. A garden is an asset. A garden pays you. Your lawn does not pay you. Your lawn sucks away your time, sucks away your money. Your garden takes time, but the time that you invest into it pays you back with organic food. It's a no-brainer, and I don't understand why people don't get, I'm going to buy a $5,000 mower, I'm going to pay for ChemLawn, I'm going to put pop-up sprinklers, I'm going to spend every weekend out there doing something, edging, mowing, weeding, spraying atrazine, whatever, on the lawn. It's like, dude, if you spent a quarter of the time growing some food, planting some fruit trees, putting in a bed of potatoes, man, you would be in good shape. We're cultivating liabilities, we're not cultivating assets. So yeah, as Bobbert says, just plant your yard. It's not as hard as you think. Thank you, my friend. Really appreciate the super chat. Appreciate the tips. So Keith says, this is Keith from Pinson, Alabama. Just wondering if it's okay to refrigerate a ripe tomato to preserve a passel of them. Yeah, you can refrigerate them. They will keep longer, but they don't really ripen very well in the fridge. To preserve a passel of them, my favorite thing to do is just throw them in the blender and then can them. Like, just cut the stem part of it out, blend them up, and make tomato sauce. Or slice them up and put them in a dehydrator, which is good too. So yeah, they will keep longer in the fridge, and also if they're not next to each other, and they're not next to apples, don't put them next to apples, they'll ripen faster. So, but yeah, you can also freeze them. My wife has frozen a lot of them and then used them for sauce and for cooking later. They freeze well. So Steve says, I use my lawn. It's full of weeds which attract pollinators, and I feed my chickens to grass trimmings. Extras go into my compost. I don't water or fertilize though. Yeah, you're taking a liability and you're turning it into an asset. Depends on where you are, Wick 589. Can you start your brassicas yet? In some climates, maybe. But not time here yet. Probably end of next month. Beginning of September. But man, it's so hot and nasty. Sometimes those poor brassicas. I always end up planting them too late. I'm like, oh, it's cold. I'm going to plant some. So thank you, Donald. I appreciate it. I will sign it when I see you. If you guys are going to be in North Florida or somewhere in Central Florida or up into Georgia, if you're within a few hours, or heck, if you want to fly in, I don't care. Scrub Fest 4 is coming up, which is the big Florida food forest event that you don't want to miss for the year. That is October 11th. This is a link right here. So, yep, that's the link to Scrub Fest. If you guys are interested, I just dropped it in the chat. I'll try to drop it below this video too. But make a big green mess. Make sure that you practice your gardening before you have to. And enjoy your gardening, but also prepare for the future. And get Grow or Die if you don't have a copy of it. Thank you all. I hope you have a great night. I appreciate the super chats and the time. And I hope that you all have an extremely good weekend to get a chance to go to church tomorrow. So, oh, thank you, Lisa. That's very nice of you. Forget the rest. You're the best. Lisa, I wish you could make it to Scrubfest again. I miss you. Anyhow, hope you're doing well. God bless you all. Have a great rest of the weekend. And until next time, may your thumbs always be green.